I'm a little uncomfortable about the class because as I sat down and read the scripture, it started with something I really want to share about nature. But then it evolved towards the band that we formed for the community. The whole class is focused on that. And I don't know how it happened, but it just happened. So I'm just going to roll with it and hope that's all right. So let's read the scripture first. We'll be in John chapter 18. And we're just reading 2 paragraphs. What we have here is Jesus just finished his last and final discourse, ending in non-dual understanding, non-dual consciousness. And but it's also, he's come to a place with the leaders of the Jewish religion at the time that they're going to put him to death. And he knows that. So he knows that he's going to be put to death. And he's preparing for that, basically. That's what's happening now. And so let's read the scripture. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. And Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. And that is all that I want to read. Okay, so wait. The reason I want to focus on Jesus going to nature is because if you read the scriptures, he had a profound and intimate relationship with nature all the time. And Christianity has done a poor job, I think, throughout its history of engendering a deep love and appreciation for nature. And part of it is because it's a panentheistic religion. So panentheism means that God is completely present in nature, but also that God transcends nature completely. And so this dimension of God that is beyond all of creation, it can, and also in the environment in which Christianity emerged, which was a pagan environment, you could see where maybe the emphasis would be more on the transcendent God apart from nature, which is because we know that God made nature up. We know that there was no nature before God invented it. So we know there's this intimacy that you can have with God that transcends all of creation. And I think that, and that is maybe our most cherished and primary experience with God. But that has been to Christianity's detriment in many ways, because it can sometimes seem like Christian theology can lead to an abuse of nature. You won't find it in the theology, but you'll certainly find it in Christian culture. And this is something that has to go. If there's one area where I think Christianity needs reformation, it's in honoring God's creation and learning to deeply appreciate it in a sacred way. It's an area where I feel there are great saints. There's St. Francis of Assisi. There are many great saints who had a profound connection with nature. But even the way it's described sometimes, Francis of Assisi was friends with wolves. So wild wolves would be tame around him and be friends. Birds would come and land on him. They would listen to him. He would preach sermons to the forest animals. But if he told an animal to do something, it would go do it. And the way that it's written in Christian literature is he had command over these beings. But I think that's unfortunate to write it that way. I think it's something else. He had intimacy with them. He had love with them. He had a mutual connection through spirituality with them. It wasn't that he could command nature. It's that he was friends with nature. That's a different way of looking at the same. So Francis of Assisi didn't have power over the animals. He had deep friendship with the animals. See, so I think there was a sheep being led to a slaughter, and he gave his own coat to buy the sheep and free it. This kind of love for the animals. Okay, so it's not that it isn't in Christianity, but hasn't been emphasized. And so if you think about, just think of every time Jesus and his disciples had to walk to another town to preach. Just know they were on a dirt road going through the countryside. Right? Their lives were built in an intimacy with nature we really can't even comprehend. Right? You still had to work for things. You had to go get water still. Right? You went to the well to get water. It wasn't like just go to the supermarket. I remember being 9 or 8 and remembering, like, thinking in the grocery store, oh, this stuff is grown somewhere. Like, it doesn't come from the grocery store. So you would think that the people then had a really deep connection with nature. And yet, you find Jesus all the time retreating away from everything to nature spots. If you read the scriptures, all the time pulling away to nature, all the time. And you know, when I was learning Christian theology, I made a point to never read any fringe theology of any kind, because I wanted to make sure my understanding was completely orthodox. And one of the things I read from the Catholic Church is that about 1/3 of the people on the planet will have their most profound connections with God in nature. About 1/3 of the people. And then they said another third has their most profound connection through ritual. Through ritual. It doesn't have to be complex ritual, but through ritual. And another third will have their very most profound experiences in contemplative prayer. In contemplative prayer. And they didn't say there was a hard line between any of these groups. We have at least one really solid nature mystic here, and she goes to the park every single weekend and has a relationship with trees. They have names. She knows their energies. She's friends with them. That's nature mysticism, but it's also, if you listen to her, it's contemplative. It's contemplative. It's just contemplative in that setting. Okay, so if you don't spend time in nature, we haven't, it's something to really contemplate. It's one thing to just see it all and say, okay, it's here, but if you start to think about, where does it come from, right? Like, how did this happen? And you can go back further and further, like, to the Big Bang or the formation of the galaxies and stars and all of that. But if you go back far enough, it comes from a mind. It comes from a mind and a heart. And that mind and heart is God's mind and heart. Which means that if you think about God then, wouldn't it then be impossible to think about God without thinking about profound creativity? Just think about that. I mean, if someone is an artist and they get paints out and paint a painting, that's pretty creative. But someone else made the paint that could be painted. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, the level of creativity that starts with absolutely nothing and comes up with everything is profound. And you have to think then, if God made it, this is where my heart aches when we mistreat nature so terribly in our society. Because you have to think, God made these things. God made someone bought a house across the street to flip it, and the first thing they did is cut down every tree in the yard. And I'm not saying, well, I am saying it was wrong. It was wrong. These trees were 50-year-old, mature, beautiful, living things. And someone just developed a plan to flip this house for lots of money, and the trees didn't fit in the plan. They cut it all down, and that's death. And that's destruction of something living and sacred. And we just don't even think about it in this society. one of the worst things my dad ever made me do, there was a tree, there was a canal next to our backyard, then on the other side of the canal was this tree, and he didn't like it. And he made me cut it down, and I should have said no, but I was scared of him. But the entire time I cut it down, I wanted to cry. It just hurt me to kill this living thing. So nature is a creative act of God. That's what it is. And you can spend time in nature, and it changes your consciousness, because God doesn't make meaningless things. So just, one insight I had while walking with a friend of mine, we were already on the meditation path, and we were always talking about God and stuff. And we went for this walk, and it was fall, and all the leaves were on the trail, all the golden, wonderful leaves on the trail. And I'm looking at them, and I'm realizing that as I'm paying attention to the leaves, it's something you take for granted. No leaf is the same. They're all different. But that is profound, man. Billions and billions and trillions of leaves have formed and fallen, and none of them are the same, not one. So then you start thinking, man, everything I look at is different. Everything I look at is new. Everything I look at is unique in its own way, and if you absorb it, it starts to expand your mind. Rigid thinking doesn't fit with it. Everything is new and different and living and changing. Everything is changing. And it's quite profound. And so so what I want to say about it is nature has purpose. You can tap into nature spiritually. There's meaning in it. God doesn't create meaninglessness. God creates meaning. Now, it's God, so it's like if I create meaning, if I'm really following the best poets, it might be subtle. And it might allude to truths, but not directly state them. But God's really good at that. And so sometimes the meaning is dizzying because you can't even find it. You put a label on it and say this is what it is, and you've cheapened that form instead of given to it. You can't say a leaf means this kind of tree means that. You can say that, but you can say it, but when I was studying shamanism, I was reading the shamanic book that defined what all the animals meant. And I went to my shamanic teacher, and he said, that's religion and dogma. Throw that away. I said, no, but they say willow tree means this, and rats mean this. And he said, yeah, that's great, but you really think that's what all rat means to you? You come on, learn from it yourself, he said. Right? So undefine it. Be apophatic about it. Don't label everything a certain way. Let it be bigger than your labels. Right? Okay, now I don't know how this happened, but so this is where the class was going, and it got into Genesis. So, okay, Genesis, it starts with God and there's nothing else. There's just God. There's no world, there's space, outer space doesn't exist. That's made up. There's no outer space. There's no time. Time is made up. There's no space. That's all made up. There's no distance. There's not like a bunch of stuff that God makes into something. There's nothing. Literally nothing. Only God. And before God there was nothing else. This is the Christian God. That which always was. That which always is. That which was not made by another. That which was not formed by another. And some interpretations of Genesis say that the first thing that God formed was chaos. A chaotic, formless something, represented by the serpents in the deep, the sea monsters. The sea and the serpents in the deep were meant to represent chaos. So there's chaos, and then the Spirit hovered over the face of the deep. And so first God makes an amorphous everything. It's nothing and everything. It's some substance, some kind, some species of thing, some energetic thing. God makes that first, and then God forms order out of that. Okay? This is Genesis. This is, if you read Genesis, it's rich. It's spooky rich. I can't read it without being filled with an energy I still can't even describe. It's spooky rich and powerful. To hear about how God formed everything, and the energies are present in the text, and so you tap it, and it's pretty crazy. Okay, so that's where we were in it, in the class unfolding, and then I thought of our band, and I just started writing about the band, and it was 7 pages. And so I just want to tell you, so, I had this dream about 9 years ago, and I had been thinking in real life about learning to play just a 2-string bass instrument, to play bass while we chanted in group. I just wanted a little bass line. So then I had this dream, and this guy had a weird looking piano with all these dials and knobs on it that changed things about it, which I didn't know what that meant. And he said, it's going to be 8 years before you could play one song. And I said, I'm just going to learn to play a little bass for chance. He said, it'll be 8 years before you could play one song. And then this power just burned over me. I mean, intense. And I just started weeping. And I said, it's so sacred. And I came out of it. So, we don't take our visions and dreams seriously. We don't assume they come from God, because, turn on the TV and look at the mass of people that are assuming they're talking to God. We just don't do that. But I thought, damn, that was powerful. It felt very meaningful, and I could take it as an idea to try. I don't have to say I'm acting under God's specific direction. So I formed a band. And 3 of us had never played instruments before. And we made this band. And I just went on the notion, what if that's really true? What if we're going to do something that's really, truly sacred and that will change people's lives? What if we could? And we went on that as I told everyone I had this vision, dream thing, but I don't take my visions as the word of God, so we don't know, but let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And it does seem like right about 8 years in, we started being able to play songs. But for the first 8 years, no songs, almost nothing. But the reason for that is because we wanted to start with the way God started with creation. So if God's the supremely creative being, right? And God started creating with absolutely nothing. And then there was chaos, and then forms came out of the chaos. Then I thought, well, let's just follow that model and make genuinely Christian music. But not Christian music where we preach about Jesus with like sing-songy, corny lyrics. But like, let's actually make Christian music that is Christian, not in name only. Not in name only. So much Christian music is pop music borrowed from pop culture with Christian lyrics slapped on them. That's not Christian. That is not Christian. I read an entire book in Barnes & Noble once. I couldn't put it down. I sat down to start reading, and I didn't put it down until I read the whole book. And it was weird, but it was a Protestant's critique of Protestant music, a Protestant preacher who said, we rail on pop culture all day for being sinful, and all we do is copy it with our art. We have come up with nothing original, nothing. And it really landed to me. That book really hit me so deeply. So I thought, okay, then, we're going to do this band, and we're going to just try to create the way God created. The way God creates. And so we just started with prayer, like quiet, contemplative meditation. Try to put our egos away completely, try to put ourselves away completely. And then someone would just start tinkering on their instrument, and that would go on, and then someone would just tinker a little more, and nobody looking ahead, right? Just it helped that some of us didn't know what we were doing, so like there was no looking ahead because we didn't know what could come, and just started tinkering, and then sometimes 10 or 15 minutes later, a thing would have formed with a whole energy and a power from God and the Holy Spirit would come through us. And then we would just say, okay, great, and then go home, and the next time we'd practice, we'd do the same thing again from absolutely nothing. And often starting or entering deep chaos before something. Sometimes we'd be in some rigid thing we'd be doing, and it would just be music. And then we would tear it apart with chaos. And then something authentic would be born after that chaos, just like Genesis. Just like Genesis. And we started to discover that we were entering the energies of creation as we played music. That when we were in chaos, we were in the chaos of the power of God. And when we were in nothingness, we were in the nothingness of God. Like that's what was happening. And we started realizing that it really was sacred, that it was sacred. And that something really, we also realized it was energy work for us. And it was funny, every new person we brought into band just kept passing out for the first few months. They couldn't even stay conscious in band. You bring a person in, they're playing, and they're out. They can't stay conscious. My wife still can't. She can't stay conscious, man. Still, it's working her over. So there's like an initiation going on where this power is taking you into this deep place, knocking you out and healing you, and doing something to you. And okay, so, and I guess I'm not using my notes. Okay, so we're doing that, and we're just trusting it's going to work out, and all these powers are coming through. All these moods and all these energies. And it's really weird. It's not typical music, and, I don't know if you guys know this, but Romans, every culture, but the Roman scales were different than ours. And they're weird. And if you listen to music played then, it doesn't sound good to us. Any guesses why? Completely social conditioning. Completely. Only because you've been hearing it done differently your whole life does Roman music sound bad to you. Does that make sense? But it does. It's rather offensive. If you hear it, you think, I don't like this at all. But if they heard our music, they'd feel the same. It's culturally conditioned. So our music is in the category they call inaccessible. It's inaccessible. Pop music is sort of like Doritos. It's very much like Doritos, actually. It really is. I really mean this. Doritos, they've got all these chemicals in there to get you addicted to it, so they could get you to eat more, so you'll buy more. And they have chemists, literally. I mean, it's not just Doritos. It's all processed food. They have chemists in there. Chemists. It's not food. It's chemistry. And they hire them to make it addicting, literally, to make it taste better, quicker, faster, stronger. They have flavor enhancers that are not good for you that are in them, that loaded with fat and sugar and salt, so that you just get your reptilian brain just going bing, 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 bing. This is all I've ever been looking for my whole evolutionary history. It's so freaking good. Like, and bong, bong, your brain just going, it's by design. It's by design. And you try to get someone who, our daughter, we don't let her eat almost any of that, ever, almost never. Because, that stuff, it never goes away once you get it in your system. You want it so bad. And then you think, eat a piece of broccoli. Ugh. It's so bland. Or a carrot compared to, once you get purified of that and you eat healthy food is incredible. You can tell. You're just like, oh, man, this is so good, Just beans and rice. My body just goes, thank you. Thank you for giving me whole food, just real food. But but junk food can take you completely out of that cycle where all you want are these quick hits to the brain designed by chemists, well, designed by corporations to make money. Well, that's what pop music today is. It's designed literally. This is not, it's not an exaggeration. It's designed by corporations to make money. And they hire artists to fulfill that agenda. And it's the same thing. Bunk, 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 bunk. Reptilian brain. Sex, love stories, play on your heart emotions. There's tricks, there's chords that trick you into feeling meaning. So they just manipulate that. It's literally designed to manipulate you to go bing, 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 bing. That feels really good. I've been looking for all this my whole life. That's pop music. And it's always been terrible, but the last 15 or 20 years it's gotten just absurdly manipulative. Where it's like they've learned to hack the human brain with it. And they're giving you hits all the time, but with no meaning, no purpose, no truth. Just Doritos. Freaking Coke Zero, man. So good. Okay, all right. So you grew up in this culture. If you hear meaningful music, it will be just like trying to get some kid to eat broccoli after they're raised on Doritos. You're just not. That's what it means to be inaccessible. That's what it means when really good music is, often they say, inaccessible. It's an acquired taste. It's something you almost have to fast from the other stuff to hear. And it's something that over time, the complexity and the beauty and the meaning of it reveals itself. Good music, the more you listen to it, the more new things you hear every time you listen. This is good music. The more you hear good music, it doesn't get old. You can't know it because it's living and there's always something new. And with good music, under any rock you look under, you say, well, I never really listen to the lyrics, but let me actually listen to the lyrics. You find it not manipulating your reptilian brain, not using sex, social status, or power, or money to make you go ding, 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 romance, ding, 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 ding. If you look at good music, you find them not using the tricks that hack your brain to release dopamine, emotional dopamine. Bop, 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 bop. But good music doesn't do that. What good music has, the highest forms of art, it doesn't have to just be music, but the highest forms of art are profound because they are rooted in truth itself. They're rooted in, whatever their expression can be many and diverse, but true art is rooted in truth itself. So that when you look at it, well, I told Jill this once, I only listen to music that I don't have to shield myself from. I only listen to music that I can open my entire soul to, on every level. And if I can't open my whole soul to it, I don't listen. I just don't listen because I don't want to walk around shielded. And I don't want my dopamine hit from that kind of content. I just don't want it. I don't want my dopamine going off for content that I have to shield myself from. And so okay, so we start a band, right? And we're like, we're gonna make this sacred music, and it is freaking inaccessible. It isn't even entertainment. You think, well, entertain me, to not us, but like a musician. They need to entertain me. No. They need to engage you. They need to engage you. Any art that is profound requires a change in the partaker of the art in order to be appreciated. We went to, I don't remember what museum we went to, my daughter and wife, and there was some religious, I really like Baroque art, and there was some Baroque art, big, original oil paintings, and I thought it was just the movies. But I sat on this bench and I could not stop looking, and I was brought to tears by And the more you see, the more moving it is for you. It's profound and it is rich. I could not get that from an image of a pop star on a poster. You know? There's layers there, there's depth, there's profound meaning. So anything, like you think of yoga or Tai Chi. I know about Tai Chi and internal martial arts, and I mean I know it from the Christian perspective, you know, but there's no power developed if you have any intent other than emptiness to start with. You have to be absolutely empty. And you have to be able to put force into it without putting force into it. You have to be able to punch, but not punch with power. There could be no energy of emotion or power, or no spirituality comes from it even after 20 years of practice. Why? Okay. Selfless. Start with nothing. Nothing. Nada. John of the Cross, nada, nada, nada. Nothing. Nothing. Only God. Only God, nothing else. Only God, nothing else. And you have to be able to move and practice in that space. And all the breathing techniques, I don't do any of that garbage. I don't mess with it. Don't need it. Clouds of power around my body, so long as there's no ego while I practice. Nothing if there's ego while I practice. Okay, so good art is good because it comes from there. It comes from there. That's what makes art profound, that it conveys meaning. And then for a Christian, it would have to directly convey the meaning of God. It would have to convey the meaning of God to people. So that 8 years of practice before we could play one song, it turns out that dream was kind of true. It did sort of fulfill, even though we didn't follow it, but it just happened. So we think we're just going to be a weird band that never sings. You know, we're just going to play weird music that half the time sucks, but that if you listen and engage is taking you through spiritual purification. Because, you know, you can't tell me you haven't experienced discomfort as a contemplative, right? So then if music was energy work, if music was faith healing, how could it not make you uncomfortable? How could it not squeeze you? How could it not make you churn? How could it not make you uncomfortable? How could it not purify you? How could it not do anything the spiritual path does? It would have to do the same things. Or it would be a diminished form of spirituality. It would just be diminished. So we just did this 8 years, man, playing, and got kind of good. I mean, we started to learn to play. I had never played bass, you know, or anything. I played a trumpet in 8th grade or something, didn't practice. So, you know, we're kind of figuring out music, but from nowhere, from nothing, just the way God creates. But then these forms started to come. We'd be playing, and this whole mood would drop in. The Holy Spirit would bring in an entire understanding, and lyrics and all would just come in. And we'd do a song we had never ever heard in our lives, and a whole song would come through. This is something Father Patrick was skeptical would happen, and it did happen. He didn't understand. I think he had bad taste in music. He just didn't get it. He didn't get it. Sometimes Christians will get too focused on the order of God and forget chaos and nothingness. You know? So then these songs started coming through, and tons of them in various different ways into the band. And they're weird. They're inaccessible. You know, we just did a show. I mean, we played well, you know, 7 out of 10. We played in front of people, so that was a test for us because we haven't done much of that. And, you know, the song we did is called The Partial Resurrection of Ernest Bitch. But it's like, if you just listen to the story, you know, you don't know what it means, but if you really listen, it's, I mean, there's a lot of things in it, but I guess I would say almost all of our songs, aside from like these fun Biller songs. Almost all of our songs are a parable for a certain stage of the spiritual journey. But it's subtle. It's subtle because we don't want to just say, hey, this is about the dark night of the soul, and this is about how you change here, because then it's not yours. If the lyrics are written subtly enough that they allude to deep meaning, but they don't tell you exactly what to think, then it's a living thing for you to interact with, and you can get your own meaning from it. That's poetry. Good poetry is like this. Good poetry is like this. And a lot of our lyrics are profound in this way, that you're being lullabied by God through the music. You're being brought into trance through the music. If you're engaging with it, if you're not tapping out, if it gets hard, you're being brought into trance, and then you're being brought to these oases to be touched by the divine. That's what's happening. And that's not Doritos, man. You know what I mean? That's a freaking 6-course meal at a fine dining restaurant. That's what that is. And you can't just, and just some Coke and Doritos. The freaking YouTube shorts, we wanted to watch last night animals that ask people for help. It's the neatest thing on YouTube. You can say, just type in animals that ask people for help. Wild animals get hurt. You think they don't know anything. Well, we don't think that, but a lot of people think they don't know anything, and then they get caught in a net and they just drag themselves up to people and go, help, and the people cut them out. And like this elk's getting someone's attention, and it won't stop squeaking at him, then running back and coming back and running away. So someone says it wants us to follow him. Leads him to a mud pit. There's 2 babies caught in the mud dying. Please help my babies. Sharks coming up to fishermen with hooks caught in their mouth, just sitting there, asking for help. But corporations are making these hit videos, so it's immediate payoff, no time to contemplate, on to the next one. And we're watching it, and I'm getting stressed. And I said, hey, we got to turn this off. And Mary said, yeah, man, it's like dizzying. It's just endorphin it, bonk, 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 bonk. It's the same as the Doritos. It's the same as pop music. It's the same. It's all quick, super quick endorphin hits with no meaning and purpose, no time to contemplate, no time to absorb what it is, no time to be changed by it. And so it's content. It's like the Dalai Lama said something like he went on and on. It was beautiful, every word, but something about we know more, but we have less wisdom. Right? We have access to everything, but we don't understand anything. And there's a Grateful Dead lyric that says, tell me all that you know. I'll show you snow and rain. Think about that. Tell me that isn't profoundly apophatic. Deeply Christian. That is deeply Christian. Tell me all that you know. I'll show you snow and rain. A lot of power in that. And so our band is finally where we can play songs, and we're okay at it. I would say we're good at it now. We can play a song. We are not as good at the earlier stages yet, but that's because we're learning to play songs. I'm assuming it's all going to come back as one. And we're going to have all of it, and our shows are going to contain nothingness to chaos to creation into some, incredibly neat, synchronized by God dancing of the musicians, where it's meant to put you into a trance and take you closer to God. That is what it is. And then there's going to be songs that have been born in that place that are meaningful and deep. Then our band is just now ready to start that. And Spencer has joined the band as our light guy, and he's also going to be our promoter. Because I'm not good at that kind of thing at all. I'm terrible at it even. He's the perfect face for it. Meet me first? I don't know, man. Meet Spencer first? Yeah, that sounds all right. And okay, so what I'm thinking is, uh, what we had envisioned was a space that produces this kind of meaning, where every stone you look under is better and neat, and you never turn over a stone that you think, oh, that's cheap, or oh, that's a trick, or oh, that's a technique, or oh, that's just something they learned, or that's shallow and vapid. Every stone I mean, we're not like as good as a lot of bands that can do that really well, but we're at least as sincere. We're at least as sincere. It's called The Ghost of Ernest Pitch, right? That's the name of the band, The Ghost of Ernest Pitch. Just a hint of sincere sound. That's what it's code for that. Just freaking trying, man, to make sincere music. That's the deal. We just want to make. It's like there's already, and you just turn on. There's an endless list of, bum 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 bum. You can get your dopamine hits, man. But what about being enriched profoundly by something? That's different. That's different. That's something different. And I have found it can be taught. I have found that if anyone will just let me guide them through it, they could be converted from the dopamine hits of Doritos to deep music, and they're texting you a year later saying, thank you, it's changed my life. This is so alive. And I'm not talking about my band now, just good bands. This is so alive. I never knew music could contain so much life. It can be taught. It can be opened to. And I've pretty much decided now any willing individual can find it. It's just, you can still eat Doritos. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's not like this or that. Eat some freaking Doritos, man. No worries. But, there's this other thing too. It's like scripture, 3 sentences has more meaning than 2 chapters worth of a book. They expect you to write 2 chapters about it because it's that packed with meaning. Okay, so our band we've been working so hard. I mean, the sacrifices, not that we're crying about it, but every Thursday and Friday, just no pay, just, drive over, do the grind, do the work, no appreciation, no one cares, and the world's never heard of us. 8 years, freaking 9 years in, we're just working, hard work, and also finding out your biggest obstacle to playing well is that you're full of crap. Not that you're not good, it's that you're full of it. So try not to hide, try not to show off. There's all these, your tendencies, if you talk too much, you talk too much. You know what I mean? If you don't talk enough, you don't talk enough. If you got to show off and be a certain something, it comes through and you're playing, and you learn that that's killing the art. You learn that, I'm not talking about you at all, but like just a cello came to mind, but I'm not talking about Lauren. But you learn that if you hit that freaking note with your ego, it sounds and feels different to the person hearing it than if you hit it without ego. That it is literally in the sound waves. You can't hide it. That if a corporation makes music, it's to pollute your soul. And if I got to show off with what I'm doing, I'm also polluting your soul. It's different than what you would play if you're coming from at least nothing, if not something true, like joy or love or peace or humility or something good. And, I remember playing good music. I raised these 3 kids in this poor neighborhood I lived in. We half raised them. And we still know them, and they're so neat. And he hadn't heard good music. He just heard what he grew up with. And I put on music one afternoon, and he just sat there quietly. And then he said, the difference between this music and the music I listen to is when you turn this on, I instantly, from the first note, I feel it in my heart. And I was watching him, and I realized, yeah, man, that there is power coming through. Well, whatever the band is, whatever state they're in is what's coming through. It's what you're getting fed. That's what it is. And so when you get a group of people together trying to do something true, then truth comes through. Then truth comes through. And so what's going on now, I don't really know. This just came, so I thought I'll make this the class, What's going on now is we're just now ready to, we're not very good yet. We're okay. I think we're okay. I think we're good enough. But what we need to do is we need to play for people now. We need to play for people. Because we'll tank. We'll play better alone than when we play for people. So some of our most magical stuff has still not happened in front of a group yet. We got some nights, man, where it is, you can hear angels coming in, literally coming in and singing with us. You can hear them. Multiple people will hear it. There are nights when you can't tell what instruments are playing what sounds at all. It is so blended, it's become such a oneness, and there's things sneaking sound through from heaven. I'm not kidding. There are nights when it is divine, and we can't do that in front of people yet. We're bull crap, just tank a little. We don't tank, but we can't totally let go yet in that way yet. So the only way to get there is to play for people, and so we're going to start promoting the band. But what we want, it doesn't need to be like a rock show. I've always envisioned someone doing yoga in one corner, someone doing some Tai Chi, a woman over here painting, oil painting, someone doing inventory, another person meditating, some people dancing. I've always kind of thought it would be a foundation, a space where lots of creativity could flow through the listener too. And that they would then become a part of the band. Because I know that if people don't listen to me, I can feel it rolling off. And I can also feel how much will come through me narrow. When I'm telling someone about truth, when they're very open, I feel a ton of power flow through, and I can feel it going right in them and landing in them. And then to whatever degree they're closed off, you can feel it rolling off them. You can just feel it. And it doesn't lie. There's no way, it's never wrong. The details I never know for sure, but like percentages, I know how much is landing and how much is not landing. It just rolls off, and you can feel it roll right off. Well, so then think of it that way. The band has got something sacred going on together, and we're playing for each other in a way, because my favorite thing is if I'm not listening to my bass. My favorite thing is if I can just get lost in the beauty of the sounds everyone's making. If I'm listening to them and not me is my best space. I'm just lost in that, man. I mean, I'm playing bass, but I'm hearing the band first, and it's gorgeous. And I just can't believe how beautiful it is, because instruments are beautiful. Cello, I think cello's the most beautiful instrument on earth. And so cello's rolling and guitar's rolling, and it's just like, oh, gorgeous drums, it's ridiculous. And it's so beautiful. So you get lost in that. But when people come to listen and they get it allows more power to come through the band. So this sacred thing we're doing, when people take it as sacred, more power comes through. And their participation, Spencer's our best thing, and Raya, their participation in the band changes us and makes us play better. And so it's part of it. It's a relationship. It's not entertain me. It's do tricks. It's not that. It's let's worship together. Let's celebrate together. Let's pray together. Meditate together. That's what it is. And so we're going to build a community now. We're just going to go out on the streets and get the homeless and the people that aren't too cool to come, like the people that aren't too busy. They got good things going on just to come, and we're going to try to create sort of a sanctuary of artistic creativity, and we worked really hard to get there, and we're finally, we have to actually take that step now, where you really do it, because it needs to be, done. And you guys are all invited to be a part of it. I know Crystal's got art supplies here now. She's painting, doing freaking paintings. Well, it's so cool. And lots of people have come in and done inventory. A lot of people come in and done inventory because that, especially during those weird, instrumental stuff, it gets real heavy spiritually. So I just want you to know you're all invited. We're going to create this community one way or another. We're going to put in giant swinging doors so it could be indoors and outdoors. That whole wall is going to be giant swinging doors now that open up. I mean, we're going to be crazy about it. We're going to do some outdoor shows where we bring everything outdoors, but we're going to the whole wall is going to just fold up on poles and open right up. We're just going to have people coming in and out doing their thing, and we're going to be playing, and kids running around, we hope, like the last show we had, which was so beautiful, man. Okay, so when Christianity looks at anything in the world that exists, okay, it can sound judgmental, and tons of Christians are they're just judgmental, but they just use the gospel to point at people and ruin stuff, and that is just terrible and ugly and sinful, and it's so cheap, But when a genuine Christian looks at the world, at what we're creating, a genuine Christian asks, where does that come from? Not, are they Christian? I wouldn't ask that. If I come in with God and my soul, can I feel that in them? And I can feel that in plenty of places that aren't Christian. I can't feel it in Christian pop music at all. It is even offensive to me when I come in from that deep place. It's offensive to me. But so when Christianity looks at philosophy, technology, economy, relationship, when it looks at anything, it asks, is God at the core? Not to judge, but just to see if it's a complete form. And is the creation, if not, it shouldn't be identical to something that's already come that's true. That would be weird. That wouldn't be like nature. That wouldn't be like every leaf being different. But is it consistent with it? From top to bottom, can you look at that art form or that economy or that anything and find that from the top to the bottom it is true? It is true. That's, the New Age says we're co-creators, Okay, not the way they mean it, but sure, co-creator, sure. From that perspective, man, to build something like that's real, that someone can come to and open their whole soul to and be only fed by it and not harmed by it. I was just thinking about gardening. You know why I don't garden? I can't take it. It makes my heart ache and hurt so bad I can't do it. It's so beautiful. I can't take it. I may become advanced enough to garden one day. But I can't garden, dude. It's too beautiful to me. I can't do it. It's too much. It hurts. But I think if a person gardened and they never lost that we've been talking about while they gardened, I think their food would be different. I think it's different. Just like the same guitar string gets plucked by the same way, but when that person is coming from that deep place, that is a different sound. I don't think there's anything on the planet that isn't true of. I don't think there's one thing.